This is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Today I have a very exciting episode for you. What we're going to do today is explain the differences between some of these different juicers and explain to you the best first juicer to buy if you are in a market for a juicer. Now, lately we've been getting many requests about the Breville brand of juicer. This is the Breville Juice Fountain Elite model, and they have the regular Juice Fountain Plus and the Juice Fountain Icon and all these different models. Basically, they're the same exact thing. This is the ultra high-end version. Now, the Breville juicer has been made really popular by a documentary film entitled Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. And I would encourage you to watch that movie, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, if you haven't already. It's a great movie. It tells the story of a guy from Australia who comes over to the U.S. who goes on basically just drinking juice for an amount of time, and he loses a bunch of weight and gets a lot healthier. Now, these are some of the benefits that I know can happen. I personally lost some weight after juicing. I was never a huge guy, and I also got a lot healthier. So things can definitely happen when you start making dietary changes and start putting good stuff in, like fresh fruit and vegetable juice, and taking bad things out, like, processed foods, foods from fast food restaurants, and the literally junk foods. And people call them junk foods, but people still eat them. And when you eat junk foods, guess what you're going to be? Did you figure it out yet? But if you eat fresh fruits and vegetables, guess what you're going to be? You're going to be a fruit. No, you're going to have abundant health, and you're going to feel great and, be at a proper weight. So why did they choose to use the Breville juicer in the movie Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead? I have no clue. The only thing I could guess is that the guy who made the film is from Australia, and the Breville is an Australian brand and probably dominates the market down in Australia. Also, here in the United States, Breville has actually fairly good distribution, and it's a fairly popular with chefs and all that. Now, that being said, from a juicing expert, which I would consider myself, I mean, the Breville definitely is a nice machine. It works well, but these juicers on this table are lined up according to price. So this one goes from the least expensive to more expensive and the most expensive. So you can see here there's juicers that are definitely less expensive than the Juice Fountain Elite, and there's also ones that cost more. But the thing to remember is with any juicer, each juicer operates a little bit differently. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to explain how some of the juicers on this table operate. And they're just like a car. When you're buying a car, if you have a family, you don't want to get a sports car unless you're going through your midlife crisis and you don't want your kids along. But if you have a big family, you need to get a minivan. So just when you buy a car, you have certain criteria that you'll need. Just when you're buying a juicer, you should have some certain criteria. I'm going to try to explain some of those today so that you'll know. So one of the criteria when shopping for a juicer, number one, instantly, is the price. You can't afford that Ferrari, so maybe you'll get a Corvette because they're still a sports car, but a lot less expensive. Same thing with juicers. Now, juicers don't nearly cost as much as cars, so don't worry about it. But the thing to remember is that a juicer is an investment, and it's an investment in the most important thing you have. And it's not an investment about making money or anything like that. It's an investment in your health. Because let me tell you, from somebody that almost lost his life when I was in my 20s, I was in the hospital, and the doctors told me that I might not make it out alive. It's not a fun place to be in your 20s or at any age. I had to really start making investments in my health because, if you don't have your health, I learned at a young age, you don't have anything. So, whatever a juicer costs, if it's going to get you healthier and you're going to use it, that's the main thing. I'd say, just get it. So whatever juicer sounds the best and is going to work best and fit your needs, because that's the other thing. Many people ask me, John, what's the best juicer? And I can't just blatantly give them an answer. That would be criminal in my opinion, because there's no one best juicer. There's one best juicer for you. And one of the things I like to say is the best juicer for you is the one you're going to use each and every day so that it can make a difference in your life. So back to investments. So when you make an investment, hopefully you have a long-term investment strategy and a short-term investment strategy. And I'm not a financial advisor, so I have no clue about that stuff. But let me tell you, I do know about juicers. And when you're buying and shopping for a juicer, one thing you want to be looking for is that the juicer has a long warranty. Because the warranty is basically the insurance on your investment. So if you buy a juicer that has a short 1-year warranty, for example, this machine, the Breville, and all Brevilles have a short 1-year warranty. If after 1 year and 1 month the machine fails, guess what? You either gotta buy a new one or you gotta pay to get it fixed. So one year short warranty on all the Brevilles. That's really short, and you know, you're spending a lot of money more than these guys, and you get a short warranty. The other juicers on the table, for example, both these guys on each end. This is the L'Equip 215 XL, and this is the Omega Vert 330 HD. Both these machines have a 10-year warranty. And you know, this one's much less than the Breville, and this one's a little bit more than the Breville. But you know, 10 times the warranty. So if this machine fails after 9 years, because you're going to be healthy and wealthy and strong and fit and in shape, outrunning all your friends the same age because you are juicing every day, if it fails, give Omega a call and let them know that the juicer failed due to a manufacturer's defect, and they will repair or replace it at no cost to you. So definitely a good thing to have a long warranty. So once again, these two have 10-year warranties, and even better than a 10-year warranty is the longest warranty in the juicing industry, and that's this guy right here. This is the Omega 8004 Nutrition Center, and this guy has a 15-year warranty. I mean, you cannot beat that with a stick. So one consideration when buying a juicer is how long is the warranty, because you're making an investment in your health and you want the longest warranty as possible. But more importantly, you also want a juicer that's going to do and perform as good as you need it to perform. So next, I'm going to talk about how each of these machines work. Basically, we have two style machines on the table. These two guys are called centrifugal ejection style juicers. And how that works, real simple. Let me go ahead and take this guy apart. You have a 3-inch wide feed chute on both these machines. Here's the pusher for the Breville, and here's the pusher for the L'Equip 215 XL. Let's go ahead and take this apart. And you can see here the feed chutes are nice and large, 3 inches in diameter. So what does that mean? That means less cutting for you because you can just cram stuff down in there. So in that instance, it's a benefit. What happens in these machines, let's go ahead and take this guy apart. You have a grading disc on here. Now this grading disc is a nice fine grading disc. So have you ever grated carrots for a salad using some kind of grading disc like this? This has the large grates, this has the smaller grates. Now the graters on a juicer are even smaller than these small grates. So this literally micro shreds up all the produce you're putting in there. So the minute that you put the produce in, these grates basically grate up the produce into micro shreds, and when it's micro shredded, juice flings off, and so does the pulp or the shreds. So the juice is flung through these holes in the screen and comes out the front of the juicer, and the pulp gets kicked out into the back of the juicer in a hopper. So the benefit of these machines is that they run at a really fast RPM, sometimes 10,000 RPMs. That's called revolutions per minute. Your car also has RPMs depending on how fast the engine's running. But these juicers spin at incredibly fast RPMs. So another thing you might want to consider before buying a juicer is how loud is that juicer. Now generally, the faster the RPM, the louder it is. So let's go ahead first and turn on this Breville. Starting up here. Man, you hear that thing? I gotta yell over it so you all can hear me in the video. This could sound like an airplane taking off in your kitchen. Now this isn't a good thing if you gotta wake up early and your family or your roommates are sleeping while you need to make your juice in the morning. Let's go ahead and turn this guy off. All right, man, you almost gotta wear your earmuffs when that's on. So next, let's turn this L'Equip 215 XL on. So you can see here the L'Equip Mini a little bit quieter than the Breville Juice Fountain Elite, but still it's fairly loud. Now once again, these are called centrifugal ejection style juicers. So on the centrifugal ejection style machines, they tend to juice certain produce better than others. And now the kind of produce they work best at are the root vegetables, such as carrots and beets. Also firm fruits, so apples and pears, they definitely do a good job on. Also things like celery and cucumbers, they do great on. So those are their benefits. They could juice the harder vegetables and firm vegetables really good. Now in general, the centrifugal ejection juicers, they're not so good at juicing leafy greens. So that's a hint there. If you want to juice a lot of leafy greens, then maybe this is not your juicer. So for example, in many cases, I'll ask a person, what do you want to juice? And a lot of people may not know that. So I want to juice everything under the sun. Then I specifically say, well, how much leafy greens do you want to juice? Do you want to juice 51% or more leafy greens, or even 40% or more leafy greens? And if they say 40% or more, then they're not a candidate for one of these style juicers. Then they might be a candidate for one of these style juicers because it's going to be more effective and do a better job and get a higher yield off leafy greens. Now, it's not that the centrifugal ejection juicers don't juice leafy greens. They do, but they get a lot less yield, and you're going to put a lot of leafy greens in here and get very little juice from them, just based on the design of these machines. Now, if you're putting carrots in these machines, it's actually probably going to get a higher yield than these guys, because every juicer works a little bit differently, and my job is to educate you guys onto which juicer is going to do the best job for you out there, depending on what you want to juice, because everybody wants to juice something a little bit different. These two guys are called single auger style juicers, and these are low RPM, 80 RPM. So let's go ahead and turn this guy on first. This is the Omega Vert 330 HD. And you know, I don't have to yell at you, I could just talk really normal. This runs at a low RPM, really slow, and it's also really quiet. Go ahead and turn that one off, and then we'll turn this one on. This is the Omega 8004, also a single auger 80 RPM juicer. Once again, that's a really quiet machine. No, it doesn't sound like an airplane taking off. You don't need the earmuffs, so that's really nice if you need to juice in the morning and you have family sleeping. Now, these machines work a little bit differently. Probably easy to demonstrate on this guy. We'll take this guy apart here. One of the negatives about this specific machine is that it has a small 1.5 inch diameter feed chute. So, you know, standard sized carrots you could put in there without cutting them up. Leafy greens you could roll up and put them up. But, you know, things like apples, you got to cut them into like quarters or sixths to fit them in the machine. Now, how this machine works is basically there's this auger, much like an old-fashioned meat grinder. So as this auger spins, what happens is the produce goes in the auger, the auger takes a chunk off, a little bite off the produce, and then it feeds it down this auger into a smaller and smaller space until literally the produce is squeezed and the juice is squeezed out of it. So it's running at a low RPM. And on the initial crush, there's a screen right here, so the juice will be squeezed out. This is stage one. The produce is squeezed further and further down out these holes, and more juice is squeezed out here. And the pulp comes out the front, and the juice comes out the bottom. So it's a much different juicing technology than the centrifugal ejections. Now, the centrifugal ejection style machines have been out the longest. So, you know, that's the technology is a lot older. So the technology has advanced, and that's when these machines came out. So there are pros and cons to each style machine. So while this one does run at a slower RPM, it doesn't oxidize your juice as much. What does oxidize your juice as much mean? Well, you know, have you ever had a car and you scratch your paint and then it starts to rust? Rust is the process of oxidation. Now, when you juice your vegetables and break open the fibrous cell walls in the vegetables and the juice comes out, that's where all the nutrition, or a lot of the nutrition, is in the juice. And once you expose that nutrition, it doesn't have a cell wall to protect it, that juice could literally oxidize or lose quality and lose nutrition. So by juicing in a slow RPM juicer, you're going to maximize the amount of nutrition you're getting. And if you're taking the time to do something, I think my first grade teacher told me, if you're going to take the time to do something, take the time to do it right. So over on this side, we have the Omega Vert 330 HD juicer. And once again, this is an auger style machine. But this auger is a vertical auger. On this machine, it's a horizontal auger. So this auger, instead of going horizontally, it goes up and down. And this is the auger on this machine, a lot bigger and beefier. So this machine came out first, then this is the latest style machine on the market. You put the produce in, it chops off a large piece, and then once again it crushes it into a smaller and smaller space and squeezes out the juice through this juicing screen. So another feature on the Omega Vert juicer is this. It's called the automatic wiping system. And this wiping system are some silicone blades, much like the windshield wipers on your car that keep your car windows clean when it's raining out. Well, this wiping system keeps the screen clean so that it'll assure you the highest yield and also make it easier to clean when it's time to clean up, because this will wipe the screen clean of many of the debris. So that's how this guy works. And you know, each design is a little bit different. Now this one, the main differences between these two units are number one, the feed chute size. This feed chute is about double the size of the Omega 8004. And the other difference is how fast they operate. Because you just saw that this one has a larger auger and it takes a larger chunk or bite off at a time, you could compare juicing with this, to eating a big plate of food. So if you have a big plate of food and you're a large 6 foot tall guy and you have a big mouth, or if the big tall guy has a little baby and the baby has a small mouth, but they have the same plate of food, who's gonna finish the plate of food first? The little baby with a small mouth or the big man with a large mouth and bigger teeth? Well, obviously, the man with the bigger teeth is gonna finish first. So in that respect, juicing in the Omega Vert oftentimes goes quicker than this machine here. That being said, these two guys are the quickest to juice, but they're also the loudest. So some of the criteria that we already covered are the price of the machine, how long is the warranty of the machine, the noise factor, or how loud is the machine. We've touched on the yield on certain produce items. For example, these don't handle leafy greens well, these handle leafy greens a lot better. And we've also touched on the speed of juicing. And we didn't yet talk about the speed of cleanup. That also can be a consideration when selecting your first juicer. Now, of all these juicers on the table, I'd have to say this machine here, the Omega 8004, is the quickest to clean up. It takes me less than 2 minutes to clean, more specifically about 1.5 minutes. This machine takes me about 3 minutes, and about the same with these guys. They're about, 3 minutes or so. So these guys are about a tie. This guy's a little bit quicker to clean up. But also, you got to consider when juicing, it's the total time to juice. So it's the juicing time plus cleaning time equals total juicing time. So that being said, because this one bites off smaller chunks, but the cleaning time is less, you might still take a longer time to juice in this than one of these other machines. So next I want to talk about the nutritional quality of the juice. So as I mentioned earlier, these machines run at a slow 80 RPMs or revolutions per minute, and these machines here run at 10,000 RPM, so that's a lot quicker. So just because a machine runs at a quicker RPM, does that mean the juice is no good? Absolutely not. We got to get out of thinking in black and whites. We got to think of shades of gray. So the black and white with this is simply if you buy a juice in the store that's been on the store shelf and sitting there for months, if not years, until you buy it, that has been heat processed and you lose 100% of the enzymes, and a lot of nutrition goes way down. And even if you're using a high-speed juicer, it's better than not juicing at all, or it's better than not drinking the pre-made bottled juices that have been heat processed so that they can be shelf stable. So another factor you might want to consider when buying a juicer is, does the juicer have alternative uses, or does it do more functions than just juice? So for example, the Breville and the L'Equip here, they only juice. They don't serve any other function in the kitchen. They'll juice your fruits and vegetables, and that's pretty much it. Now the Omega Vert will juice your fruits and vegetables, but in addition to juicing, it'll also allow you to make nut milks and soy milk for that matter. Now if you want to maybe reduce the amount of dairy in your diet because you heard dairy can be clogging or give you mucus, or maybe it's high in fat, or whatever reason, this machine will allow you to make things like almond milk, hemp seed milk, which is absolutely delicious, and even coconut milk, which is actually my favorite. And on this machine, the Omega 8004, this is actually called the 8004 Nutrition Center because not only is it a juicer, but it allows you also to make major lifestyle changes. So besides just juicing, if you want to improve and better your diet, I would recommend to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds, and that's what this machine allows you to do. It'll allow you to make your own peanut butters and nut butters at home. You could feed the nuts through the machine. It'll basically homogenize or grind them all up and turn it into a nut butter. I have videos demonstrating this on this guy's big brother, which is the Omega 8006, which is identical to the 8004, except only the color is different. The 8006 is in a chrome color, basically, and this one is in a white color. In addition to making the nut butters, this one will also allow you to make baby food. So say you're an expectant mother, congratulations, or you have kids or young kids, or you're going to have kids one day. This will allow you to make fresh baby foods at home. So you could take whole carrots, homogenize it into basically baby food that's all mushed up because the kids don't have teeth to, chew it up. They just will mush it all up for you. Maybe you're elderly and you don't have teeth. This will allow you to basically mush everything up into a mush, and so that you can get a better digestion. So definitely another feature that you might want to consider that might be valuable to you. And probably the greatest feature of all with the Omega 8004 is simply this. This machine will allow you to take, say, ripe bananas. You buy them at the store in those little bags, right? You get them for half off or pennies on the dollar compared to what the unripe ones are, right? You bring them home, you peel them, put them in a glass Pyrex dish with a top on it, or put them in a Ziploc bag and freeze them, right? You got to peel them first, don't forget. Then you take those out on a hot day, just bananas that have been peeled, put them through the machine with what's called the blank plate, the same plate that you would put in to make the nut butters and the baby foods. And out the front of this machine will come basically a banana sorbet, 100% banana sorbet. So if you want to, kick the ice cream habit, because once again, ice cream can be high in fat and maybe give you mucus and maybe have lots of sugars and additives and artificial colors, flavors, and preservatives. You could eat 100% bananas, and you know what? Eating 100% bananas, that's definitely good stuff. So not only does the bananas taste good for you, but you know what? It's getting you on the track to eating healthier. So what I like to do is substitute things that are good from the things that are bad. So for example, if you're drinking a morning coffee, make a morning fresh vegetable juice or a fresh fruit juice, and you know what? You're going in the right direction. For dessert at night, instead of having a bowl of ice cream, hey, have a bowl of frozen bananas. And besides just frozen bananas, you could put frozen bananas through there, and then some frozen strawberries. I've even done frozen mango and frozen pineapple. Man, that is just so delicious. So while some of these machines have multi-function purposes and will do more than just juice, let's get back to talking about juicing, because that's what this video is all about, helping you select the first juicer for you. And like I said, each one of these machines work and run a little bit differently. And next, we're going to talk about how much pulp is created in the juice. Some people like orange juice with no pulp, and some people like it, with pulp. And each one of these machines produce different amounts of pulp depending on what you're juicing. So, for example, in general, these two machines here, the Breville and the L'Equip 215 XL, make the least amount of pulp because they have the finest screen, or the screen that has the smallest hole size, so that lets the least amount of pulp in. Probably after that is the Omega 8004. This has a smaller screen hole size, plus on the container that the juice gets collected into, they have an additional strainer that you can strain the juice and some additional pulp out. So then that makes the next pulp-free juice. And if you like pulp in your juice, and for more pulp in your juice, that's where the Omega Vert 330 HD comes in. That'll give you a little bit more pulp in your juice. Now, is pulp in your juice bad? Absolutely not. It's just extra fiber for you, and there have been some studies that I've read that show that extra fiber in the juice will actually help keep the juice fresher longer, because it's some of the properties in the fiber that protects the cells of the juice, while it's still intact. And even after it's been juiced, they say that the fiber in the juice can help it last longer. So now you might be thinking, John, that's really great, but now I'm even more confused. What juicer do I get? Well, basically you want to make a list of the produce items you want to juice. You want to juice, 30% apples, 30% carrots, 30% celery, and 10% leafy greens, right? If that's what you want to juice, then I'd probably recommend one of these machines, provided you don't want to have to do or be able to do the multi-functions. So the multi-functions that maybe this machine could offer you. And you don't want to do the nut milks that this machine will offer you. Because basically these guys, once again, do hard vegetables and hard, firm fruits. Now, don't even try to juice bananas unless they're frozen bananas through this machine, because bananas aren't going to juice. And even things like peaches and plums and strawberries, I recommend blending instead of juicing. And I have a video that basically describes the differences between blending and juicing. And if you want to learn more about that, check that video out. So on the other hand, if you want to juice lots of leafy greens and you say, hey John, I want to juice 60% leafy greens in my diet, because you're one of those people that have done some research and you shop at Whole Foods, and Whole Foods is using this scoring system called the ANDI, A-N-D-I score, which stands for Aggregate Nutrient Density Index. Now this ANDI scoring system was put together by Dr. Joel Fuhrman to basically score the nutritional density, or how much nutrients is in a specific produce, or actually any food item. So for example, a Coca-Cola or a soda has a nutrient density of 1 on his grading scale, and kale or collard greens have a 1,000 on the list, and 1,000 is the highest it goes up to. So when you're consuming some of these ANDI score foods that are 1,000 and in the high 900s, you're getting some of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet, because the more nutrients you can flood your body with, in my opinion, the healthier you're going to be. So if you want to juice lots of leafy greens, then you might want to go with one of these machines. Now, what if you're saying, John, I want to juice leafy greens, so which one of these should I really get? Well, that's where it could definitely differ. If you want to juice like a lot of leafy greens, but a lot of also everything else, then you might want to go with this one, because the feeding goes a little bit quicker and it's a lot easier. If you want to juice leafy greens and fruits and carrots and everything else, then this might be your baby. On the other hand, if you want to juice mostly leafy greens with some other things, maybe leafy greens with celery, because this machine doesn't tend to do celery too well, you might want to go with the Omega 8004 Nutrition Center, because this machine does the leafy greens a little bit more effectively. This machine can have a problem with ejecting all the pulp out of the machine when juicing a lot of leafy greens and celery. Next, let's go ahead and talk about yield, because yield is important to some people. Certain machines, once again, will extract more nutrients and more yield from some produce items than others. So for example, if you want to juice like 100% carrots, to be honest with you, I'd probably choose one of these machines right here, because they're actually going to get a high yield on carrots. Now it's going to oxidize your carrot juice a little bit, but you know what, that's still good, and it's going to be fast, a little bit loud, but it's going to work just fine. And you know, when I first started juicing, I had a machine such as one of these machines. I had the original Juice Man 2 juicer, and I juiced hundreds, if not thousands of pounds of carrots through my machine, and it worked really great. Nowadays, if I was to choose a machine, what machine would I choose? Well, I would choose actually one of these two machines. These are the two machines that actually sit on my countertop, and I pick which one I'm going to juice with based on what I'm juicing. So for example, if I'm juicing a lot of carrots and some greens and some apples, I like the Omega Vert just because it looks cool. It also takes up less counter space, which can be another consideration for you, because this one takes up a lot more counter space. If you live in a small apartment in Manhattan, you don't have a lot of counter space, so you might want to get this machine. This machine has the smallest footprint. Now what the footprint is how much counter space it takes up on your counter, and it takes up quite a small amount. This one probably takes up the second most counter space, followed by the Breville, and then followed by the Omega, because it is nice and long, and once again it's a horizontal auger style machine. But I prefer these two machines, number one, because it preserves the most nutrient quality, number two, it runs at a low RPM so it's not too loud on my ears, and number three, it juices what I want to juice most. And let me tell you, I have been juicing for, over 25 years now. After all these years, I've learned that, the number one thing you really want to juice is the leafy greens. Now, some juice is better than no juice, but leafy green and dark leafy green juice is probably some of the most nutritious and healing juices on the planet. And that's why I prefer the Omega Vert 330 HD, which is also the same as a Vert 350 HD, except the Vert 350 HD is in the silver and black color. Or the Omega 8004, which is identical to the Omega 8006. Now, if you don't have the budget for this, then I'd definitely go with the Liquip 215 XL. It's definitely less than half the price of the Breville Juice Fountain Elite, and it also comes with a 10-year warranty. So I hope you've learned more about these style juicers today and which juicer is going to best meet your needs. Now, if you still need help selecting a juicer, please be sure to check my other videos on YouTube explaining and actually me demonstrating putting different produce items through different machines and doing what I call juice off, where I pit two juicers head to head so you could see and hear me explain all the differences. You could see the results that each machine gets. They can be invaluable. And once again, if you do need further help, please visit the website discountjuicers.com and contact me directly to ask me any specific questions that you may have, and be sure to leave me some specifics. So don't just say, hey John, I want the best juicer. What does it say? Hey John, I want to juice 30% leafy greens, 10% carrots, 30% papaya, 10% this, and let me know specifically what you want to do, because once again, every juicer is a little bit different, and my job is to make sure that you get the juicer that's going to be right for you, but more importantly, a juicer that you're going to use every day so that you can get the health benefits like I have. Once again, this is John Kohler with discountjuicers.com. Be sure to visit discountjuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for our YouTube visitors.